So we welcome everyone to the PAARC May 7th, 2021 monthly meeting. Tonight we'll be recording, so please mute your video if you don't want to be seen during this recording. We're happy to welcome Pete Kobak, K-O-B-A-K, who's going to give us an introduction to POTA, also known as Parks on the Air. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Pete.
Oh, that was quick. I'm used to other clubs having more business and stuff. So let me get things.
No problem.
Slideshow. I'm always nervous about this part, trying to get everything connected, and people use different systems. Okay. Share.
And welcome to everyone here tonight. Thank you for being with us.
Now, hopefully, people see that first slide.
Yes.
Yes? Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, my name is Pete Kobak. K0BAK is my call sign for obvious reasons. And I've given this, or a version of this presentation, to a couple clubs over the last few months, one in Long Island, virtually, of course, one in Long Island and one in South Jersey. So it's nice to come back to my home club here. And I haven't said so publicly, but I'd like to reiterate how special I think this club is in the number of different interests, including Parks on the Air and many different interests. There's just no gatekeeping in this club. And I just love how many different club members enjoy ham radio in different ways, but share their enthusiasm for the different parts. So it's real special. And Melody doesn't get recognized as much as she should for all the work she does in the club, and today handling the online meeting, as well as the tough part of taking minutes and all the other stuff. So Melody, I want to single you out for all the work you've done for the club. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Parks on the Air. I've given a presentation on this subject to the Pottstown Club 2, maybe even 3 years ago when it was first getting started, and it has grown quite a bit since then. So it's a good idea to hit this again. And I know there are some new members even here online. So thanks for inviting me. And I love this program so much. I welcome any opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah.
So what's Parks on the Air? It's an independent. In other words, it's not part of the ARL or any other larger organization. It's an independent organization just for the purpose of encouraging people to operate at parks and encouraging other hams to contact those people operating in parks. And I like this phrase. It was not, I didn't write it, but I like this phrase written by WT8. Jay, she wrote the original slideshow here, and indeed, POTA has a large set of references and a short set of rules. So that's a great combination to enjoy any program. It's not obsessive the way contests can be, and there's a lot of different opportunities available at a park near you to go out and activate. So let's first talk about the two definitions of a word I'll be using a lot in this presentation: activators and hunters. Now, activators operate from one of over 27,000 locations now in 33 countries. The last time I gave this presentation to PAARC, we are only in the United States, and Canada has expanded to 33 countries. And of those locations, more than 8,000 are in the United States. And that number is much bigger now, although it hasn't gone over 8,000. So many different parks in the United States to activate. Hunters, sometimes called chasers, operate from anywhere, including home, most typically to contact activators that are in parks. And then lastly, two activators can contact each other for a park-to-park USO. So let's first talk about hunting. To find an activator to contact when you're hunting, the easiest and most straightforward thing to do is to go to POTA.us. It's a website set up just for Parks on the Air spotting, and you will, except maybe in the middle of the night, almost any time of day, any day of the week, there will be multiple activators out there for you to contact. Just go to POTA.us for the band, for the frequency and mode they're at, and the park they're activating. Other methods include signing up for Slack, which is a community with a forum-like interface. It's often used for IT developers, but Slack was adapted for those kind of conversations within Parks on the Air. And there are quite a few channels on Slack, including one to get a serial list of spots. And this is really handy if you have just a phone with you, or if you want to see if your buddy has reached a park, so you can contact them. This is a more convenient way of getting the information by phone. Although POTA.us is also written to show up on your phone pretty well as well. You can get on social media and get information for pop-up activations, people just doing it at the last minute. You can check our scheduler for any planned activation. This is useful if you're looking for particular parks, like a park that you've never contacted before, or maybe you're working on your worked all states in general, or for a particular band. This is a nice way of finding in advance if someone's going to be out there helping you with an activation. Sometimes a DX cluster comes up with an activation. You can look for keywords or this pattern. This K-4-digit number is the pattern for park designators. That's not used so much today. And some people get upset when they see park activation spotted to the cluster, although we all know spotting to the cluster is done for a lot of purposes. So anyway, you might see this when you're looking for other places, but this is not a good primary place to find parks. Then lastly, of course, you can always spin the dial. And the nice thing about the growth of Parks on the Air is that, again, except in the middle of the night, perhaps, there will always be somebody on the air, and you're likely, if you just spin the dial, you're likely to find somebody activating a park. To contact an activator, I mean, the first rule is pretty obvious, but often it's DX stations, to tell you the truth. Only attempt to contact if you hear the activator. I guess that should be obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody. The typical exchange is signal report and your location, meaning your state. So this is what's expected. But there could be a contest exchange with somebody operating in a park. There is no required exchange, but 9 times out of 10, this is what the activator is looking for, signal report in your state. One nice thing is that this is an honor system program, so you don't even have to log the contact. There's no log matching, contact matching. It's all on the activator's log as to who they contacted. So all you have to do is make the contact on the air. You don't have to even worry about logging it or sending in your log. The next 2 items, again, should be obvious, but it's always nice to emphasize good to use phonetics, and that kind of drives me personally crazy when I have 20 people in a row using phonetics, and somebody who thinks they have a strong signal doesn't use phonetics. It just bends my brain for some reason. So yeah, use phonetics is great, and slow down your CW to match the activator. Many activators are learning Morse code just for the sake of activating, which is fantastic. It's not something I've done yet, and I'm embarrassed that I don't know Morse code yet. But if you do hear an activator, please slow down to match their speed. Of course, the DX code of conduct is good. So we do have some people chasing or hunting who throw out their call sign more than once, or do other activity that makes it less pleasant for other people. So yeah, just use the DX code of conduct for contacting, and you'll be good for the community. But I'm sure every park, and I'm not saying this facetiously or tongue in cheek, I'm sure every Pottstown member does contact other stations, either using the code of conduct or just following that example. And then lastly, this is a nice to do. Please spot that activator to the same page, POTA.us, especially if they haven't been spotted at all. That's really important for them. Or if the spot is old, say if the spot is 10 minutes, it's great to re-spot them. It's also nice to comment, hey, which something I do and a lot of other people do, is say, hey, I heard the activator 5-6 in Southeast Pennsylvania. That gives other hunters an idea of how strong the activator is and what the chances are of being able to make a complete contact. So some reasons to enjoy hunting POTA activators is the number one is you're helping another amateur reach their goals. It's always nice to help out another ham out there. The second point, I really like to emphasize this. It's an easy, short contact, so it's great for new HF operators. If you're Elmering somebody new to the general bands, POTA is a nice introduction because it's a pretty standardized exchange. There's always activators out there to try to contact, but it's also at the same time pretty laid back compared to contests, for instance. So it's nice practice for new HF operators who are kind of mic shy and don't want to have a conversation, but want to practice making contacts. If you sign up for the website, you can get comprehensive statistics and get awards that are downloaded from PDFs. I'll have an example on the next slide of a couple of those. As I mentioned before, and I like to emphasize, in order to encourage hunters to go out there and contact activators, it requires no log submissions from hunters. Of course, in general, it makes you a better operator, keeps your skills sharp. You get to make friends in the program. If you do it often enough, you'll understand the voice or the fist or the other quirks of the activators out there, and it's fun to make virtual friends, whether it's just on air or via social media. Unlike contests, you can hunt as much or as little as you want. You don't have to wait for a particular weekend, a particular contest to run, even a particular time of day. There's almost always someone activating, and you can get intensely into it like I am, or you can just occasionally, hey, I just want to make a contact. I don't want to have a conversation. Do it as much or little as you want, and you don't even have to log it. And then you could also help activators by saying something like, if you hear a park to park trying to call them, in other words, another activator trying to contact an activator, you can help out your activator by saying there's a park to park calling, or spotting when they announce on the air that they are changing frequencies. Excuse me, I always get dry doing presentations here. So if you do sign up for the website, which you don't have to do, but if you do, you get an account. Even if you don't activate, you can get your stats because the activators have submitted logs that have your call sign in them. So once you log in, you can go to the tab that says My Stats here, and then scroll down to My Hunted QSOs, and you'll get a list of the parks you've contacted. Again, you don't have to do anything. It's all on the activator. The parks you've contacted, the time, and the mode and the rest of the information. And you can also get summary statistics about how you're doing in the program and other information in these tabs. And here, awards issued. This allows you to find awards issued to you and download them on PDF format. A couple examples of Hunter's Awards. There's many more than just this, but two examples. The most basic one is the number of unique parks you've contacted, and these go up by 10 when you first start. So your first award is at 10 unique parks, then they go up by 10, then they go up by 100, then they go up by 500. So I'm at 2,000 unique parks, for instance, and my next level is 2,500. So it gets harder and harder as you go up in the numbers. Another example, this is much harder to get, is contacting all the parks in a particular state. And there's also awards besides these two. There's also awards, for instance, for the number of contacts in what we call late shift, which is from 0000 UTC to 1200 UTC. For most people, that means at night, or it could be in the morning. And also there's award for the number of times you've contacted the same park over and over again. So a lot of opportunities for different awards if you like that sort of thing. So we talked about hunters. Now we're going to talk about activators, the people who go out and activate parks. Of course, the first thing, once you have your equipment, the first thing you have to do is find a park to activate. And the two main ways of doing that are you can generate a list of parks by state. For instance, you can see all the parks in Pennsylvania by scrolling through a couple of menu items on the parksontheair.com website. And this is useful if you know of a few parks nearby, and everybody knows of a few parks near their own home. You can scroll down and verify the name of the park as well as the reference number of the park that you have to use within Parks on the Air. And the other general way is we have an interactive map, so you can just like Google Maps, although it doesn't use Google Maps. Just like Google Maps, you can scroll in and scroll out, and the different park locations are designated. And by clicking on those, I hope to have a demonstration of that later on if we have time. You can get information about the individual designators on the map.
680 64.
Somebody's got their mic open saying a number. So what do you need to activate a POTA reference? Obviously, a license and a radio that you can carry with you. Any portable antenna, and antennas, as you might expect, is the biggest point of technical discussion on the Facebook group, for instance, because there are so many different choices. You need a portable source of power. That generally means batteries, but if you have AC power available, that's pretty rare, but some people do, some clubs, for instance, do field day type activations of parks. You might have AC power available, but for the most part, that means batteries. And park activators are strongly going toward lithium iron phosphate batteries, and in particular, many activators go to the vendor called BioNO batteries because they have a great reputation among hams. You need a log program that can export an ADIF file. You need to submit your logs in ADIF format. Every logger out there does that, exports as ADIF, and you just have to use one of them. You don't even have to use them on site, but you do have to use them. So some popular antennas, and this, we could talk for an hour on portable antennas, but some popular antenna examples include wire on a self-supporting mast, Wolf River coils, which are just a brand of a bottom-loaded vertical antenna with a manual coil adjustment. Alpha Antennas makes a line of portable antennas. They seem to specialize at NVIS, but they make other types of antennas that you can purchase, and they also build for the military market, so they tend to be pretty robust. Soda Beams is another vendor. They specialize in very lightweight antennas, often used for summits on the air activations where people are humping the antenna in, so weight is a big concern. Screwdriver antennas are probably the opposite end of the scale, being heavy and expensive. That's what I use on my ham van to activate, and of course they have their advantages and disadvantages, and many more. There are there is almost an innumerable number of different antennas people use for activating, and that's part of the science and part of the fun of doing the activations is determining what trade-offs you want. Trade-offs between cost and weight, and how easy it is to put up, and how fast you can put it up, and how easy it is to change bands. So this is kind of a whole science in itself, and it's always a compromise. But there are a lot of different dials and dimensions you can change, so to speak, to pick out the antenna that works best with your operating style. For sure, one of the most common questions beginners ask is, "Hey, what's the best antenna for activating?" There is no answer to that, because first you got to answer, how are you going to activate? Where are you going to activate? What's your style of activation? And you may not know that when you start out, but there are a lot of different choices, and they all have their pluses and minuses. How do you activate a POTA reference? Well, this first line is the most basic rule of all. You need 10 contacts in one UTC day, from 0000 to 2359 UTC. And once the clock clicks over to the next day, your count also clicks over. Now you need 10 QSOs to have it count as an activation, but all the contacts still count as contacts, right? So you always want to send in your log, even if you don't make all 10 contacts within one UTC day. And the other part of this is very important, and this little phrase hides a lot of, I don't want to say complexity, but hides a lot of details. You have to be inside the boundaries of the park. One of our few really strict rules in Parks on the Air, we're kind of loose, but one of the few really strict rules is being within the boundaries of a park. And sometimes that's obvious, like many state parks, or most state parks, I would say, you have well-marked signs and obvious parking lots, but a lot of times, like say for wildlife areas, for instance, or for very large sprawling state parks or national parks, you may not know where exactly the boundary of the park is. So you do have to do the research from official maps of the park you're trying to activate, to find out the appropriate location to activate from. I have to caution new people to Parks on the Air that although Google Maps and other electronic maps often map boundaries, and the Parks on the Air map itself shows locations. You can't depend on either one of those. You have to do you have to do your own research to get official maps to be sure, if there's any question about it, to be sure you're within the boundaries of a park. So we're lucky within Pennsylvania, unlike New York State, for instance. It's a counterexample. Pennsylvania has an excellent set of official maps, and it's easy to find out where you have to activate a state park or other state property in Pennsylvania. You can use any band. Your privileges allow, of course, even the PAARC bands. Because it's not a contest, it's okay to use the WARC bands. You can use any simplex radio mode, including satellite, except terrestrial repeaters aren't allowed, and that's common in most programs like this or contest. And even digital modes are okay, like DMR or Fusion or the other proprietary digital modes are okay, as long as you're going radio to radio. Now, most of those modes are enhanced with internet. As long as you go radio to radio, though, those kind of digital voice modes are allowed, as well as WSJT and all the other modes you can think of, as long as it's radio to radio. We recommend operating in the general band for obvious reasons. Gives more people an opportunity to contact you, but it's not required. And there are no specific calling frequencies. Another newcomer question that's often asked: what are the calling frequencies? The bands are too crowded to do that, especially in the voice portions of the band, and especially when we're all crowded into 20 meters and longer. So there's no specific calling frequencies, and it's hard to pre-announce a frequency you're going to be at because of that crowding. So just find an open spot, start calling, and the key thing is to spot yourself so people can find you. Now, there's no specific exchange required beyond, of course, your call sign. I mentioned before, signal reports and locations are expected, but they're not required. In fact, you don't even have to call CQ POTA or announce you're at a park. You can just operate at a park. As long as you're within park boundaries, you make contacts for any reason. They still count for Parks on the Air, and you can submit them. You can log electronically or on paper, depending on your preference, but you do have to submit electronically. So if you choose to log on paper, realize that you have to go through a step of entering those into a logging program to export the log. So submitting that log after you activate, all you need, the required information is the obvious information you would need for any contact in any event or contest, and that's a date, time, band, and mode. You export it as an ADIF file. Every logging program, I don't think there's any exceptions. Every logging program can export an ADIF file, which sort of looks like a structured file if you've ever looked inside of it. It's the standard for ham radio log exchange between different systems. Okay, so you submit that. Now you have an ADIF file. You submit that to what we call a regional coordinator, along with your call and the park number you activated. So it's one log per park you activate. Now you send to the coordinator based on your call sign number. So I'm a good example because although I live in Pennsylvania, I have a 0 call sign, K0BAK. I would send it to K0@parksontheair.com. If you have a call sign with 3 in it, you would send it to K3@parksontheair.com. It's all about your call sign. It's not about where you activated. It's not about where you live. It's about what's in your call sign. And it's only a way to partition the logs to spread the work out to the coordinators. Recently, we required a file name format that looks like this. The date, obviously a year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, your call sign, and the designator of the park, which in the United States is K-4-digit number. So that's the required format, and I'm guessing that's a new requirement in order to get ready for self-service, so you can upload your own logs. And there are additional fields recommended for park-to-park contacts, although they're not required. And that's kind of an advanced subject that you can get into as you get more into the program. For now, just remember ADIF and the basic information. The call signs aren't mentioned here, but that's pretty obvious. The basic information you'd have in any contact log. So how do you call CQ? It's pretty straightforward. In my case, I would say CQ Parks on the air, CQ POTA. This is K0BAK activating park K1880. And then CW, there's a similar format that looks like this. Then, as I haven't emphasized it enough, I'll keep on emphasizing, put yourself on the POTA spotter and you will be hunted. That's something I can guarantee, that if you spot yourself, people will try to contact you. I can't guarantee you success. I can't guarantee that people will be able to contact you, but I guarantee there will be dozens of people out there, dozens of hunters out there trying to contact you. So when you go to that spotting page and you click on new spot, you get a pop-up that looks like this, and very straightforward. You have the call sign of the activator, your own call sign, which might be different if you're spotting somebody else, frequency, and the park reference, and any comments here like their mode or what their signal was heard at your home and so forth. Click spot and they're spotted. And if in this case, if you spot yourself, you're off to the races. You're almost certainly will hear people trying to contact you. So we emphasize spotting so much. There's other ways of getting yourself spotted. For instance, if you don't have cell service, which is pretty rare in Eastern Pennsylvania or any of the surrounding states, luckily, it's pretty rare not to have cell service. But if you schedule an activation and you're on a CW or other digital mode, the reverse beacon network or the PSK reporter will pick up your call sign, match it with the time that you scheduled your activation, and will spot you automatically, which is pretty darn cool, I think. I didn't code it, but whoever did has got their act together. And there's a particular format you want to go in when you're calling CQ in order to get picked up by those automatic methods. And even more spotting methods are coming. Spotting by SMS text message, by JS8 call, which is pretty awesome, I think. Spotting by APRS. So we do want you to get spotted. Some reason to enjoy a portable activation and includes, typically you got a lower noise floor than we often have at home, and beautiful views that we often don't have at home, and opportunities for watching wildlife. You have challenges to overcome, and it always feels good to overcome challenges, including the terrain, space constraints, weather, the accessibility of the park are all constraints that are at different levels in different parks at different times. This is a good opportunity to perfect a portable radio kit. I mean, we're hams, and even if you're not into emergency operations, and I'm certainly not into it, it's I think it's really good for every ham to be able to have some kind of a temporary station that they can operate in an emergency, even if you're not into it. So this is good to perfect that kind of station, to have that in your back pocket, so to speak. Of course, any kind of more opportunities to operate means you're going to become a better operator and keep skills sharp. And lastly, you can make friends all over the world. I like this phrase here. Again, I didn't put them up with it, but you become the DX in the sense of if you have a good enough signal, you'll generate a pileup. And I don't know, I'm kind of a pileup junkie. I love getting the pileups. It's a lot of fun. It's overwhelming the first time it happens, I'll tell you that, but it's a lot of fun getting a lot of people who want to contact you, right? And then the nice feedback. Thanks for the new one. Thanks for activating. Thanks for the park to park. So I don't know. Those are feel good reasons for wanting to go out there and activate and have people contact you. Other reasons people enjoy POTA is that POTA is accessible, right? So there are references near most areas, and many of them you can drive right in. There are programs like SOTA, and it's not a put down. I super respect hams who hump their way into a summit or other primitive area and operate. That is fantastic, but not everybody can do it. So this is accessible in the sense that many parks you can just drive in. As long as you can drive a mobile station, you can participate. You don't have to be physically fit, and as long as you can get there or get yourself driven there, you can participate. You can do your own style of activation, right? So some activators, and this includes me, some activators run rapid deployment, contest style, running around to different parks as fast as possible, making as many contacts as possible, and moving on. And others go to the opposite end of the scale, hang out at a park for hours, even days, like if they rent a cabin or something, and rag chew from the park. You don't have to spot yourself if you don't want to. Every contact from the park counts, and just have an enjoyable time at the park and still be part of the program. So from one extreme to the other. You can do it any way you like. Any style works, and any style that you enjoy, you can do, as long as you're inside a park making contacts. POTA accepts, unlike some other park programs, POTA accepts POTA accepts logs from any time. So if you have a log from a park you were in years ago, you can submit it. You don't have to be part of the program, and the park doesn't even have to have been, if you get that tense, doesn't have to have been in the program when you made the contacts. As long as you made the contacts at some point and the park is now in the program, they count for POTA. The POTA staff pages and maps are for a volunteer organization with limited resources. I think they're pretty sophisticated and very helpful. So you have a lot of tools at your disposal for helping you do the activations or do hunting. And lastly, all modes are welcome. FD8, FT4, for example, CW, voice, any mode is welcome. And they all count as separate contacts, by the way, even to the extent that if you make on the same band, if you make multiple contacts to a particular hunting station, if you make a contact on FT8, it's a separate contact from even FT4. So again, we're really loose with that. Every separate mode counts as a separate contact, and every mode is welcomed. Some activator awards include basic ones like for hunters for the number of unique parks activated. Of course, it's a lot harder when you're activating than when you're hunting to push that number up. I'm at 391, so my next level is 400. I'm trying to get to the 400 level myself, and that has taken more than 4 years for me. So it's a hard slog to get to that level, but you can get a certificate with as few as 10 unique parks activated. An award that's available just to activators includes park to park, when one park contacts another park. In other words, an activator in a park contacts another activator. It's a park to park contact, and those are a lot of fun because you're contacting a fellow activator, right? And when you hear someone shout park to park within a pileup, most activators will stop and say, "Hey, park to park only," so you can get that park to park contact, and that's a lot of fun. It's kind of a sub activity within Parks on the Air. Other activator awards include, like, some people can't go very far, right? Some people can only go to one or a few parks that are local to them because of time constraints or other constraints. So you can get awards for activating the single park many times. And the opposite, this is an award I've gotten a lot, is an award for the number of parks activated within a 24-hour period. Or even going between locations within the same park. So if you like to run around the different parks, this is the award that will recognize that effort. To join the POTA Fund, you want to create an account. If you're an activator, you definitely need to create an account. And this is fast and easy. While you can use an email and password, the easiest thing to do, the thing I did, is use a single sign-on with a account you almost certainly have. I mean, most people have at least one of these. Many have all three. Having a Google account, an Amazon account, or a Facebook account, you link that as a single sign-on so that all you have to do once you're registered is click on this button and you're in, and that's really nice. One less password to have to manage, right? So this is pretty. I think this is pretty impressive programming for just a ham radio site. I don't know of any other ham radio site that allows you to log in single sign-on with other large sites. So I mentioned this in passing a couple times. Parks on the Air is enhanced by looking at by joining us on social media. Facebook is the biggest single location, and it's great to have text discussions, sharing pictures of your activations, stories, technical discussions, and it's a great place to hang out. And in my opinion, it really enhances the whole activity by adding that component of creating a community and getting to know people in other ways. But there is no requirement to. There are a couple of big hunters, for instance, who don't even have an account on Facebook, and that's fine. It's not a requirement. It's just an enhancement. I also mentioned earlier Slack. That's more of a concentrated. That's not the right word, but it's kind of a text mode program that is just dedicated to Parks on the Air. Facebook, it's kind of hard to follow conversations because Facebook follows their own conventions and algorithms for showing what they want you to see in what sequence. But the Slack has multiple channels just for Parks on the Air to have discussions that are threaded, that are easier to follow. Again, not required. And then also many activators are on Twitter and Instagram, but Facebook by far and Slack secondarily is where a lot of us hang out. I have a series of pictures showing examples of some activators. Here's one of our leaders, Tom, W-A-T-A-M, out with a buddy of his on a beautiful lake. Right here in Pennsylvania, Tioga State Forest is quite a dramatic view with the what looks like a end fed over on the attached to that gate with his own seat and table. That is quite a dramatic picture. I love that one. Here's an example of a who used to be a very active activator out in the middle of the country. K0ATZ activated quite a few parks, and you can see. This is a Hustler system, which I later adopted. I'll have a picture of my own, for what it's worth, my own vehicle with the Hustler antennas. In my opinion, Hustlers are a really nice compromise between speed, price, flexibility, and performance. So it's unlike the Wolf River coils or some other bottom-loaded vertical antennas. This is not center loaded, but this has the loading up on top of a metal mass, so you get more efficiency by keeping the loading up high instead of right at the bottom. K7CAR goes out boondocking, and he sets up an entire antenna farm, and it's kind of hard to see, I think, on Zoom, but he's got multiple masts up here, and here's a 20-meter dipole with whips, and he has a whole antenna farm he sets up for multiple days out often in desert locations just like this. So he's quite an activator and makes quite an effort to put up highly efficient antennas. You don't have to activate just in the summer. Here's a couple examples of activators in the winter. Pierre V2GT is very active as both an activator and as a hunter up in Quebec, and Joe N2CX is a silent key, and he activated many of the parks in South Jersey and Delaware and Southeast Pennsylvania. And Joe is missed because he was so active and so helpful, especially to beginner CW operators. Some of my own pictures here. Most parks, I mean, when you think of a park, you think of a beautiful area with natural surroundings, but there are parks, so-called parks. There are sites within urban areas. Most of those are National Park Service sites, such as historical sites. So here's some examples of activations in urban areas I've done at the Women's Equality National Monument in Washington, D.C. There's a ham stick dipole that I use that allows me to carry it around and put in pretty compact locations. The same system here at Pedersen House, which is the house where Lincoln died across the street from Ford's Theater. It's part of the National Historical Site. And here is a magnetic loop, which is a kind of a terribly inefficient antenna, but sometimes it's the only thing you can do. And this is what I use to activate the smallest National Park Service site right in Old City, Philadelphia. And a couple more of my own pictures. I've talked about my ham van before, and this is just part of the ham van with the screwdriver antenna in back. So it doesn't show much of the ham van, but I love this background because what I did to get here was get here on an early Sunday morning and driving past the sign that said this parking lot is only for congressional members and their staff. So I look like you can see some commercial trucks in the background. So I tried to make myself look like I belonged there, even though I didn't. And most recently, about a month ago or less than a month ago, because my because that same ham van was in the mechanic, which it often is. It has a lot of breakdowns, unfortunately. I went out in my fun car, a Subaru WRX, and used a hamstick antenna. And here I am at the foot of the Verrazano Bridge in Staten Island. And this is a park of the National Park Service that I'm activating here. And just a little bit of trivia here. This Hustler antenna I had in my storage locker for about 4 years that I won at a park. I think it was a park raffle. It was some kind of a fundraising event. And this antenna system I got, but didn't know I'd ever use, and finally got it out just a month ago to start activating with this WRX with a triple magnet mount on the roof of the car. And hey, it makes international contacts, makes contacts out to the West Coast, so it works very well. And this was from that park raffle, I think it was. This was donated from Ed, WA3WSJ, or Wall Street Journal, as he calls himself. So a little bit of park trivia for the antenna that I didn't know I'd ever use, but I used it pretty effectively. So I do like Hustler antennas for what they can do. Now, my clock is showing 40 minutes into the presentation. I must have been slow. I felt like I was going fast, but I guess I was going slow. So it's already been 40 minutes. I'll leave it up to Melody to let me know if I should do the demo or not.
Oh, yeah, definitely do the demo, I think.
Okay.
You have time, Pete.
You have time. Okay. I don't want to bore anybody on purpose.
It's a wonderful presentation.
Oh, geez, thanks. All right. I'll stop sharing that. What is going on? Okay, hold on. As usual,
Welcome, Jared. Welcome, John. See you, and Dennis. You came in a little bit later. If you missed part of this, I'm going to have it. It is being recorded, and I'll get it posted sometime over the weekend, and I'll send a note out with a link.
Okay. Hopefully you see my browser now, and you do. Okay, good. So I mentioned this a few times in a slide. PAARCsOnTheAir.com is the homepage for the Parks on the Air program. So I'm going to bring that up, and you can see the main information here on the front page. Shows the people contacts, a donation page if you're welcome to donate. Again, this is totally independent and relies on donations and volunteers to work. So this is what you'll see if you're not logged in. So you get all this without having to be logged in or registered for access. So let's look at I think the obvious thing here is help getting started. We have how to register and the rules, and FAQ. This is really nice. Some people learn by text and some people learn better with video. So Matt here was a much better presenter than I am. Had made a series of videos that are very helpful for beginners. You can see they're relatively short on different basic subjects for Parks on the Air. And this is recommended if you'd rather learn by video. I know my son rather learn by video than by reading things. An activator PDF guide, there's some details there you won't find anyplace else. So before you activate, it's great to download this and take a look. Video guides for hunters when you first started hunting, and the the hunter PDF guide is available for getting started. So this dashboard login is where you click, especially if you're part of the program, and the dashboard gives you, let me expand this out a little bit, dashboard gives you a snapshot of all the information about the program. And here's my humble effort here, 739 activations, and I've mentioned before, 391 unique parks, and I'm trying to get the 400. And you can click to get more details about the leaderboard if you want to. Now up here is where you'll mostly be looking at for finding information. So I mentioned that you can get a list of all parks near you by for instance, you can get stats by location. In other words, you can see which parks have been activated the most and the least if you're trying to pick parks that haven't been activated as much to generate more interest. This is a good place to go. But let's go to parks by entity. And there's a pretty long list, and then you can get to United States, and this will take a while to completely load. But this is really nice for if you have a park out there, you want to quickly look up where they're located, or if you want to see what the name is. This is a nice reference of all the parks. And when this finally loads, and that wasn't too bad. When this finally loads, it's really quick. So let's say, hey, what's the number for Valley Forge? So I can just type that in, and eventually it'll search in real time and find the basic information for the Valley Forge Park. And you can see the reference number is K0761, for instance. Now, if we go to stats by location, this is an even longer list. And here's where we can find Pennsylvania, if I can find it. And there's so many other countries in here. It's harder to find things than it used to be, which is a good thing that the program is expanding overseas so much. Oh, here's 175 parks in Pennsylvania, and you can just scroll through here to find parks, if you know the name already, to find parks near you. And so that's useful in that case if you just want to see that. And let's see, John Hine, for instance, which is down in southwest Philadelphia. Always crowded, and this gives, oh, hey, there's my call sign. This gives the activities that have happened in that park if you're interested in that. Whoop. Oh, yeah, don't ever do that. All right, sorry about that. Let's go back. Yes, I should know better than that. Go back to dashboard login. So let's go to, okay, so now I'm back to the home page, right? And here's what I think is probably the most useful tool if you're trying to pick parks away from home, and that's the map. So you got to do a couple little clicks first. You have to pick your entity, the United States on top, conveniently for us anyway, and then the state. So this limits the number of this is actually a performance enhancer, so it limits the number of parks that are displayed. That just improves performance, right? And then, so this gives you a view inside Pennsylvania. You click in this little target, and as long as you have, you don't have to have, but as long as you have, you've given permission to Google to give your location, it'll give you a close approximation of your location, so you can have that map centered on your home. And now I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll out, and probably kind of hard to see here. But you can see some of the parks in the local area. Let me go back. All right. This probably is not performing too well on your Zoom screen, so I apologize for that. So here's Pottstown. Here's me. Over here is the area of French Creek State Park. There it is. And you can see that by clicking on one of these yellow locators, it'll give you the details, the name of the park, and most importantly for activator, the number of the park, 1355 in this case. And you can also click more info to get more info. So that'll give you this will bring up a map just focused on that one park. Latitude and longitude. Now this is really helpful because you can copy and paste this into a more full-featured map program like Google Maps is my favorite, and use all the features of Google Maps to find your way there and to plot your trip there and back. Let me close that, and just by clicking, sometimes it's hard to really get a focus. Clicking on each of these yellow locations, you can get the name and the approximate location. Now, at the risk of well, that didn't pop up properly. But anyway, at the risk of of beating a dead horse. This gives you a location, and locations in Pennsylvania are pretty good because I personally know the mapping coordinator. That's me. So if you have any problems with the locations, I'm responsible for it. But I've tried to find locations that are easy activation locations. That's not always true, and I have to emphasize you are responsible for making sure you're inside the property of the park, and that generally means, especially for wildlife areas that aren't marked as well, that you want to download the official map and find that. And then you can cross-reference to Google Maps and find out the exact location you want to activate. But you do sometimes have to do some research to find out where to activate. You can't rely on Google's borders here. There are places that are inside the park that are not shown here, and vice versa. Even more importantly, vice versa, where it shows the park boundary, but it's not true. So don't rely on Google for the exact borders of each park. And now you can scroll out and scroll in. And again, I apologize for whatever horrible thing is happening on Zoom as I do that. But as you scroll out, it gets a lot easier to see the yellow marks. And you can see quite a few parks. There's some deserts, like around Lancaster. There's kind of a desert where there aren't any parks. In Delaware and South Jersey, there are quite a few. So you can, if you're willing to travel even an hour or two, you can find a lot of different places to activate. And if you're like me and you like to activate a lot of them in one day, you can plot that out here. Or if you just want to find a new one or a beautiful one or someplace you want to stay for a day, you can do that too. So that's the map, one of the most useful tools in Parks on the Air. Now I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and okay, let me go back to the home screen. So it says dashboard login. So you get to log in by going to the login tab and scrolling down to the login button. And if you're already registered, I showed this on an earlier slide, all you have to do with whatever service you registered with, whether it's Amazon, Google, or Facebook, all you have to do is click and you are logged in. Now, for the first time, if you want to sign up for an account, you can click down here. But if you want to use single sign-on, you still want to click through one of these, assuming that you're already logged on to one of these three services in order to sign up with the sign-on that you already have with one of these other services. It's up to you. Some people are paranoid and would like to use a username password, but geez, I love having, because I'm always signed into Google. I'm kind of I'm a slave to Google. I'm always logged in there. So all I have to do is click. So I'm going to click now. Authenticates with single sign-on to Google, and now I'm in. What you see different is that this used to be the login tab, and now it's changed to My Stats, because the POTA site now knows who I am, and I can get my statistics. This takes a long time to load, so I'm not going to click on that, but let's see. So this will give me a list of every place I've hunted, or in other words, activators I contacted in parks, and I've done that 4,430 times, and you can click on each column here to sort. Of course, the most useful sort is by time, or you can do it by location, and this will give you every single contact you've had. Going down to here, you can get the awards page. So whether you're a hunter or an activator, all your awards show up here, and then you just click on one of these links, and it'll bring up a PDF file that you can save or print or do whatever you want with. And this is nice and saves postage, and it saves trees if you don't print it out, and it makes it nice and convenient, and it allows Parks on the Air to offer a lot of awards without the time and expense that is necessary if they were physical awards. So I think that is about it for the main parts of the demo, unless there's something somebody wants to see specifically on this site. I'll wrap it up and take questions.
I'm going to remind everyone you can unmute yourselves in case you want to ask questions. And Pete, I think I have the first question, and that is, if you're going to a park and you're working multiple modes, as an activator, that just counts for one activation of that park. So if you do an FT8, FT4.
Yes, the number of, let's say, the number of contacts in the park depends totally on doing it within a UTC day. But each of those modes counts as a separate contact. So even if you contacted me on FT8, it counts as a separate contact if you contact me later on FT4, for instance, or any other combination of mode or bands. Did I answer the question? I feel like there's something else.
So you're activating the park in, would you say 24 hours?
Within 24 hours. Every contact you make from the park in any band or mode counts as one contact from that park, as long as you're within the UTC day.
And can you go back to this? You can go back to the same park and work it again?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yes, you can. Yeah, they count as separate days and separate activations. Now there's another park program that kind of does the opposite. You need in another park program from which this evolved. The other park program required 44 contacts, but you could do it with a combination of contacts on multiple days. Parks on the Air works differently. It's a small number of contacts, but you got to do it in one day. And did that to encourage more activations to do exactly what you just said. Go back to the same park again and again and again. If you have 44 and done, then you're not as motivated to go back to the same park. And some people can't travel. I love to travel and do a lot of parks, but some people can't. So that helps out people to be able to activate the same park again and again, and it counts as a separate activation each time.
So where's your next target? Where do you want to go next? What park do you want to activate?
Yeah, there's some parks I haven't activated in northern New Jersey. I did a bunch of them around New York City about a month ago, and that was an exciting day because New York City is always challenging, right? So there's some parks around northern New Jersey, but they're very primitive. I'm a little worried about not having cell coverage up there. There are also some parks that are kind of sandwiched in between southeast Pennsylvania and northeast Pennsylvania. I did a bunch in the far northeast of Pennsylvania one time on my way back from Canada. And of course, I've done ones around home. There's a section in between that may contain at least 10 parks to get to that 400 level I'm looking forward to. So long with an answer to a simple question, either central, eastern Pennsylvania or northern New Jersey.
Great, thank you. It's a really wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melody.
A comment, Pete. For the CW, a lot of them send it around less than 13 words a minute.
Yes.
They make it easy for people, and there are a lot of them are using QRP stuff, so I have fun working them.
Oh, so you have worked POTA parks, Ed?
I work people. I look for them on CW. Eventually, I'm going to wind up doing it.
And that brings up a nice point too. That some people are really into QRP. Even some hunters are into QRP, although they kind of drive me crazy. They're so proud. It's only 5 watts. This is 5 watts. Yeah, I did it with 5 watts. Yeah, okay, dude, I got it. But there's it's another subcategory of people going out to parks and trying to do QRP, and you're doubly constrained because you've always got a compromised antenna, right? You got compromised power. So I have a lot of respect for people to go out in the field and do QRP.
I work them, Pete, and they're very proud. 5 watts.
Yep. And when you activate it, that's a nice accomplishment. Now, for those of us who don't do Morse code, it's nice that digital modes are recognized. I've done that a couple times from, say, urban locations where the compromised antennas are even more of a compromise. So it gives those of us who are no code hams an opportunity to do weak signal work without having the no CW. So the rise of FT8 have been great for people like me.
And putting that you're on the air, you do get a pileup. Because I was with Walt, we're up the Delaware Water Gap.
Oh yeah.
40 CW, and he put it on, and all of a sudden, I had all these people calling me like crazy.
Isn't that great? That's great. And a lot of us, that's the only opportunity we'll ever have to have a pileup aimed at us, right? So I mean, like I said, it's intimidating the first couple times, but once you get used to it, it's fun. It's nice to be popular, right? So that's a fun thing.
Some guys within about 30 minutes.
You said radio to radio. What about repeaters?
No, repeaters are not allowed.
No repeaters.
Right. Okay. Right. Which is kind of common for most programs. You can use satellites though. That's pretty rare in parks on the air, but very rare. But satellites are recognized. I don't understand if you don't use a terrestrial repeater, why you're allowed to use a repeater that flies through the air, but it seems to be a common thing in ham radio.
Yeah. The satellite is moving, so it's kind of rough to make that contact. So I can see trying to get it through the satellite.
Yep.
Or station.
Pete, I enjoyed the picture from the Little Granny in Pennsylvania. As soon as it flashed up, and went, "Oh, I know where that is."
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that is a great site.
Oh, good. I've never been there myself.
Yeah. What is the most favorable band that you run? I saw a lot of 40 meters, so I assume you run 40 meters a lot.
Yeah, especially on us on the East Coast, we have a big advantage. West Coasters are sometimes are frustrated by all the East Coasters using 40 meters, but that's definitely the money band because you get the most population within the typical 40 meter donut.
Looks like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. I really enjoy it.
I got something I got to do, but I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and I'm going to go sayonara.
All right. See you, Leonard. Hope to see you live soon.
Okay. See ya.
Hey, Pete.
Yes.
Lake Nakamixon.
Yes.
Who activated it and when?
Oh, you're trying to challenge me. Okay. Let's
Well, Randy and I used to sit up there with he used to have antennas up there. But that was about a couple of years.
Oh my goodness, come on now. I just saw it. Sorry about this, guys. All right, Pennsylvania. Now we got it. Now is that LAC?
No, it's Nakamixon.
NOC.
Oh.
Nakamixon.
NOC. There it is.
It's Nakamixon State Park.
All right, here we go. Oh, look, that Kovac guy did it. So here's the list. And I mentioned N2CX Silent Key. He did it. Looks like he did it first and multiple times.
Okay.
I worked through a couple of times.
This is John Wallner, a member of the Pottstown Club as well.
Yep.
And this guy's coming up. I don't know if he's a member of the club, WA3GM, but he is. I've seen him come up a lot. What's that?
He's a rooster.
Oh, okay.
I don't recognize the call.
Yeah, that's okay.
Greg Malone.
Greg, right. He's a head rooster.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you guys know him personally.
Yeah, real nice guy.
Very good, Pete.
K3AFE that's John down there in Pottstown.
Yep.
N2QHL. Oh, that's N2OAL. Sorry.
N2 Oscar Tango Lima.
Well, I thought because N2QHL, he's down in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Oh, okay. Would be unlikely, but possible. Hey, I've activated places in Alabama and New Brunswick, so you never know.
K1390.
Yeah, Greg's good, the GM.
Do you have any more questions for Pete on the site? Because when he's finished, then we can just stop sharing the screen and I'll halt the recording.
Are these all the activations from Knox Vixen?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can get that for any park.
Very good.
You also get summary information too. So using a different page, if you just want the numbers of the number of activators and the number of contacts in a single line, you can get that too.
So with like the older parks on the air that was done by the ARRL, I don't know how many years ago, 34 years, going to like someplace like Valley Forge, did you have to get permission and things? I thought it was a little more challenging.
That's a big subject in itself. Do you have to get permission? No, I've activated there many times, but you're always at risk of a ranger who doesn't understand what you're doing challenging you. That's always a possibility, and it's more of a possibility the more crowded and the more popular a park is. Valley Forge certainly one of those. I mean, that's one of the reasons I try to go to out of the way places. There's a little parking lot that most people don't even know is part of the park that's next to the Valley Forge post office. I like to go there. There's also a trail parking that's on the other side of the river. That's nice for nighttime activations when it's really outside of opening time. So, but don't anybody report me. So yeah, try to be out of the way and make yourself not a big target for people for rangers who don't understand. For the most part, state of Pennsylvania rangers are pretty nice, and you just and you can talk nicely to them, but national park rangers sometimes can be aggressive, or I don't want to say ignorant, but ignorant in the non-pejorative sense of not knowing what ham radio is about, and might say, oh, you need a permit for that, or think you're broadcasting and try to explain the difference between broadcasting and contacting people. Do the best you can, but sometimes you just got to say yes sir or yes ma'am and move on. Luckily, that's pretty rare.
Talk to Wall Street Journal. He has a couple good stories about that, Pete.
Oh, I've heard of the Secret Service picking him up. I love that story.
Yeah, but I think he was on a road somewhere when that happened.
Right.
He wasn't in the boundaries of the place.
Right. But the fact that he had his, pedestrian mobile stuff, and they thought he was a weirdo, and
well, it's the times we live in.
That's right.
Yeah, so like my TV van is pretty darn visible, so it's hard to it's hard to stay below the radar, so to speak, with that thing.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we can continue to talk just because the file just gets so large. So thank you very much again. And thanks for everyone for being here, but please continue on.